How we doing, everybody? Back at you with another video. Today, we're going to be discussing the topic of the law of empowerment in John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. And the law of empowerment discusses how comfortable a leader is with empowering others, even if it means giving some of their authority away. And the author, brought up some very good points. One of them I want to mention in a moment. And, as I always do, I reflect in my own life and how not only in my own leadership or my history as being a leader, but when I look at other organizations and other companies, how John C. Maxwell reveals how a company or organization becomes stagnant if the leader is not willing to empower others. And the example that the author gave in this book that he used to really model somebody who was very good at empowering others is Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln had a history of appointing cabinet members that didn't think how he did and were in many ways antagonists. Oftentimes, when a president appoints his cabinet members, they're people that are like-minded, people that he likes and that he feels those always going to be in his corner. But Abraham Lincoln did the opposite. He appointed people that had different views than he did, that may have even been stronger than he, or had stronger leadership qualities than he did. He was not intimidated to put people in positions around him that didn't like him, but were good for the country. And that in itself is just a wonderful illustration of empowerment, because sometimes empowering others is about empowering people for the sake of the organization and not for the sake to stroke your ego or to make you feel more comfortable. And the author talked about how during the Civil War, he appointed General Meade to take on the responsibility of being able to lead the troops, and how Abraham Lincoln was very hands-off with how General Meade dealt with the troops, because in the chapter he talks about how Abraham Lincoln sent him a letter on the battlefield and said, look, I stand behind you. Whatever you want to do, I'm behind you. I'm not going to be giving you minute by minute directions, but whatever you say it is, that's what it's going to be. And that's awesome, because what it does is it gives a leader room to grow. And how oftentimes the author talked about how there are many generals who made mistakes, and how Abraham Lincoln was quick to take responsibility, and really take the blame for a lot of the people that he empowered. And that's awesome when you really think about it. But as I was just looking at this chapter, there's one thing that the author said that really stood out to me, and I wanted to read it, because it's something I didn't expect in the chapter. When you read these chapters, you get a sense of, I kind of got a sense of what the author's going to say, but it was something he said that really struck me, and it was the paradox of the law of empowerment. The author is saying, if you are able to continually empower others and help them develop so that they can become capable of taking over your job, you will become so valuable to the organization that you become indispensable. That's the paradox to the law of empowerment. Because he lists later in the chapter that job security is one of the number one reasons that people do not empower others, or leaders do not empower. They're afraid that someone will take their job. But the author was discussing that the paradox is you become indispensable when you in one way treat your authority as to be indispensable by empowering others and giving it away to others. Because one thing that I noticed that, you know, people are very concerned about, they're very concerned about, you know, who has authority over them, you know, you know, what they're concerned about their freedoms as a leader, you know, the things that, in my opinion, don't really matter. You know, what matters is, you know, who are you empowering? You know, like this chapter talks about, who are you building? You know, you're not so much concerned about the luxuries of leadership or the benefits of leadership. You're thinking about the responsibility. And I know someone just recently in my company, you know what I mean? That person, you know, as a course and, you know, the course of time and just watching them, they were more concerned about the benefits, the luxuries of leadership, being able to, like Jesus said, you know, sit in the good seats of the synagogue, the high places, you know what I mean? But they were not, they were very neglectful of the responsibilities of leadership, and they kept falling short, and so eventually, you know, they're no longer in that position because of the responsibility. They were getting themselves ready for all the good things, but they weren't getting themselves ready for the places where they need to grow and be reflective. You know, even today at work, I stayed at home today. You know, I wanted to finish my blinds. I was working on my blinds today. And, you know, I have a leader right now, a team lead that's doing wonderful. And, you know, one thing I noticed is that, you know, something I learned through experience that I wouldn't have learned any other way is that, you know, sometimes when you're empowering somebody, and in order for him to become a team lead, I have to empower him. And in order for me to empower him, I have to let him have his way at times in terms of things that he decides, you know what I mean? And you know, I always cross-examine whether it's his decisions or mine. Is it what's best for the department? Sometimes, you know, we go with it, but if it ever gets to a point where there's a toss-up between, let's say, his way of doing things and my way, and both of them are equally beneficial, I would just rather go with his way, because a true leader is always looking to always do more than what they've been doing. They're not satisfied with what they've been doing, and they look at the amount of work and the amount of effort it's going to have to take, but among everyone. And you know what I mean? Because sometimes you're not just empowering leaders. Sometimes you're just empowering just followers too. You know what I mean? You're caring about their decisions, you know, or what they want. You know, what kind of pizza do you all want today? You know, it's just, I'm not going to have to, I don't, you know, many times, and it's something I read by Jeff Bezos, that there was a study read that he only makes a few decisions a day. You know, as a leader, and I believe I talked about this in other videos, it takes energy to make decisions. You know what I mean? And so a leader will, once they get to the point where they really understand leadership, a lot of your seasoned leaders are going to make as few decisions as possible. You know what I mean? They are going to want to give as many decisions as they can to other people, so the leaders, the seasoned leaders, can focus more on the bigger problems. You know what I mean? Because the seasoned leader understands, I'm just here to help and be who I need to be. See, I would empower supervisors, I would empower team leads, so then I can focus on the things that they can't do. You know what I mean? Now it appears that, you know, I'm giving up authority, or I'm giving up, you know, a sense of job security, but I don't think like that. You know, true leaders never really think about, you know, someone is going to take my spot. You know, a true leader knows they're always going to have a place if they're constantly growing, constantly making good decisions, and is empowering others. You know what I mean? So, you know, that's something that a true leader never has to worry about. And I think about Jesus, you know, in the Word of God, where he actually gave authority to the disciples. He told them, "I give you the authority to tread upon serpents and snakes, and all the powers of the enemy. You know that nothing will be able to harm you." And you know, Jesus, of course, in my opinion, he's the best leader that ever walked the earth. And one thing I noticed about with him, Jesus was always about wanting to empower others. You know what I mean? He was very meek, in terms of never wanting to exert his authority, or make people feel like he was the leader. You know what I mean? And that's shown with his disciples. Many times he would tell his disciples, he told his disciples, hey, when it comes to, feeding the multitude, hey, why don't you feed them? He gave them the opportunity to feed them. Now, later on in the chapter, of course, he ended up feeding them. But he gave them the opportunity to shine and let this light of God shine through them. And he only stepped up when the disciples just couldn't do it or couldn't believe that they could. So, when I think back at Jesus, and just how well and how masterful he was at uh, empowering others, I believe he is the quintessential example of this entire chapter. As soon, it was amazing. As soon as he came and he had died on the cross, got up, and right before he ascended into heaven, uh, he told them, all authority in heaven and earth has been given unto me. So now I send you out. And he was basically saying, I'm sending you out with this authority. So as soon as he get the authority from God, okay, he immediately shares it and empowers the church at the same time. You know what I mean? He didn't wait and say, I want to keep this authority for myself for a little while. No. He empowered the church simultaneously, or right afterwards. That's so awesome. You know what I mean? When I think about it. So definitely, law of empowerment, powerful chapter. Definitely, take a read. If you haven't gotten the book, I definitely recommend you getting the book, because law of empowerment is a very important chapter, because it's really a test of a leader's heart. Are you prideful? Because usually prideful people aren't going to empower you. You know what I mean? Are you truly for the department, for others, or are you just here for yourself? And I think that's what the law of empowerment really is. It's a test of pride. And when you get to the point where you're not empowering others, like the chapter says, you're really closing the doors on opportunities and progress of the entire company or organization. So definitely great chapter. Look forward to the next. See you all later.